Have you ever picked up your phone, opened an app, and then suddenly realized, wow, an hour has just vanished?
Oh, definitely.
Or, felt that subtle pull, almost like it knows exactly what to show you next just to keep you scrolling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that feeling isn't accidental. Turns out it's very much by design. Today, we're doing a deep dive into some really groundbreaking material that proposes a pretty radical shift in that dynamic.
Yeah, this is big.
It's called the Digital User Autonomy and Non-Manipulative Engagement Act, or DUNMEA for short. We've pulled together a whole stack of sources. We've got the legal text itself, strategies for how it might actually get passed, and what it could really mean for your digital life and for the tech industry too.
A huge impact there,
Yeah.
potentially.
Right. So our mission in this deep dive is to pull out the most important insights, help you understand how this could fundamentally change your relationship with technology, basically aiming to put you back in control.
And what's really fascinating here, I think, is that we're moving beyond just talking about ideas, theoretical stuff.
Yeah.
These sources actually lay out a tangible legislative framework. It's designed to pivot us away from an economy built purely on capturing your attention.
The attention economy.
Exactly. Towards one that genuinely prioritizes your choice and, frankly, your well-being. So we'll unpack the core problems that led to this proposal. We'll dig into the specifics of DUNMEA itself, explore the likely battles ahead, because there will be battles,
Oh, for sure.
and consider the ripple effects across the whole digital landscape. It really raises a huge question for all of us. What does a future look like when technology is actually compelled to serve human flourishing rather than just, corporate bottom lines?
Okay, so let's start there. Let's look at the why. Why this push for change? Our first source, the unseen hand, seems to get right into it. What's the core issue DUNMEA is trying to fix?
Yeah, this source really lays it all out. The central problem is the widespread use of what it calls artificial means by algorithm.
Artificial means.
Right. These aren't just simple recommendations. They are, and this is a key phrase, meticulously crafted architectures, actively designed to maximize your attention and your engagement. Think about all those free digital services we use every day. The core insight here is that you're not really paying with money. You're paying with your attention, and you're paying with your data. Every single click, every scroll, even how long you pause on something, it's all tracked, analyzed, and ultimately monetized.
So connecting this to the bigger picture.
Yeah.
This isn't just some accidental side effect of having the internet.
No, not at all. That's the point. This unseen hand isn't accidental. It's deliberate engineering of attention. And it comes with some pretty significant societal costs. We're seeing fractured public discourse, often because of filter bubbles and echo chambers.
Right, where you only see things you already agree with.
Exactly. The algorithms prioritize content that just reinforces your existing views, limiting exposure to different perspectives. Then there's the very real problem of cognitive overload, leading to what some people are even calling brain rot or attention fragmentation.
Oh, brain rot.
Yeah, it's this constant stimulation that reduces our ability to focus, impacting productivity, critical thinking. And then there's the erosion of trust and your own sense of autonomy. You get that feeling of being constantly watched.
Yeah, the creepy feeling.
Right. And the whole model shifts from you pulling the information you want to platforms constantly pushing content at you. That's the heart of surveillance capitalism. And undeniably, there are serious mental health implications too, especially for younger people. We see validation traps, intense social comparison, FOMO, sleep disruption.
Yeah, displacing real-world stuff.
Exactly. And displacing healthy activities. The economic incentive for these platforms is just profound. They face what the source calls a fiduciary duty dilemma. They're legally obligated to maximize profits for shareholders from this engagement, which makes genuine self-regulation pretty much an economic impossibility.
That paints a really clear and maybe slightly worrying picture. So for you, the everyday user, what does this all really boil down to?
It means your digital experience isn't entirely your own. It's being subtly but powerfully directed by algorithms, all for commercial gain. That constant need for validation you might feel, that feeling of being trapped in an endless scroll, it's designed that way.
Okay, so given that, how does DUNMEA actually propose to break this cycle?
Yeah.
How does it try to change that dynamic?
Well, this brings us right to the core of our deep dive. The act itself and the thinking behind it. We're drawing here from the sources, the Digital User Autonomy and Non-Manipulative Engagement Act and Reclaiming Digital Autonomy, a rationale.
Right, the rationale. So what are its fundamental principles? How does it actually try to give you back control?
Okay, so the Act is really built on four main pillars, four core principles. First, user autonomy. This asserts your fundamental right to make uncoerced choices, to actively curate your own digital experience.
So you're in the driver's seat.
Exactly. Second is transparency. The goal here is to shed light on those black box algorithms, provide auditable insights into how content is actually being selected and shown to you.
See behind the curtain a bit.
Precisely. Third, accountability. Establishing a really robust framework for both financial and legal responsibility when platforms cross the line. And finally, and this is key, focus on functionality.
What does that mean, functionality?
It means the law targets the behavior and the effect of these systems, not just what they call themselves or the specific technology underneath. So, for example, content recommendation gets a functional definition. It's any automated selection of content that isn't from your direct search or something you explicitly subscribe to. So, that For You page, that's purely designed to maximize how long you stay glued to the screen. Under this act, that would be classified as a prohibited artificial means to drive user engagement.
Got it. And the teeth of this law, they sound pretty sharp, don't they? The penalties seem designed to be a serious deterrent.
Oh, absolutely. They are serious. The Act introduces this tiered civil penalty system, and it's directly linked to a company's gross revenue. And that term gross revenue is defined very broadly. It includes all money coming in, advertising, subscriptions, even equity investments.
Okay.
For a first offense, it's a 10% penalty on that gross revenue, but then it escalates dramatically. 25% for a second offense, 50% for a third, and a staggering 100% of gross revenue for the fourth and any subsequent offenses.
100%. Wow.
Yeah. And crucially, all prior offenses count in perpetuity. There's no reset button, no statute of limitations on those prior violations. This basically ensures platforms can't just outwait or outrun their past actions.
So they can't just budget for the fines.
Exactly. And furthermore, these fines are designated as a senior obligation. That means if a company goes bankrupt, these fines take precedence over other private claims. They become unavoidable.
And this law also aims for global reach, right? It applies extraterritorially.
That's right. It's designed to extend to any platform that's accessible in the U.S., no matter where that platform is actually based. And there's also an ACES blocking and facilitation clause.
Okay, what does that do?
That allows for blocking access to platforms that don't comply, and it makes it unlawful for any U.S.-based entities like hosting services or payment processors to provide services to those non-compliant platforms.
So cutting them off financially and technically.
Essentially, yes. So for you, the listener, what this means is a really significant push towards an internet where your feed is genuinely your choice, not dictated by an algorithm designed to hook you, and where platforms face severe, truly unavoidable consequences if they engage in manipulation.
Okay, now, with such a broad and, frankly, powerful aim, you could worry about potential overreach, right?
Yeah.
Does it go too far? But our next source, amendments to the Digital User Autonomy and Non-Manipulative Engagement Act, seems to draw some clear lines. What exactly does DUNMEA not regulate?
Yeah, this is a really important clarification. The amendments make it very clear that DUNMEA is not regulating general UI/UX design, the look and feel of an app, unless that design directly incorporates these prohibited artificial means to drive engagement.
Okay, so button placement isn't the issue.
Right. It also doesn't touch general cybersecurity vulnerabilities or pure content moderation decisions, deciding what content stays up or comes down, unless those decisions themselves are being driven by manipulative algorithms designed for engagement.
Interesting distinction.
It also doesn't regulate financial fraud or general age verification processes. Its focus is really precise.
Yeah.
It's about the algorithmic selection and prioritization of content specifically for engagement. And it's also worth noting, the amendments mention that specific prohibited design patterns, things like infinite scroll, autoplay videos, manipulative push notifications, those variable reward schedules you see in games sometimes.
Yeah, just one more feeling.
Exactly. Those are understood to be addressed by separate legislation focusing specifically on addictive patterns. So DUNMEA isn't trying to be the everything law for digital harms.
Got it. It keeps its focus.
Yes. And that functional definition of content recommendation we talked about is key here. It ensures the law targets the behavior of the system, regardless of how a platform might try to relabel its features internally to get around the rules. So for you, this means the law is narrowly focused on giving you back autonomy in how you discover content, not on dictating the visual design of an app or other unrelated parts of a digital service.
Okay, that clarifies the scope quite a bit. So let's imagine DUNMEA actually passes. What's the forecast? Looking at our source, a new digital horizon, near-term and long-term implications. What are the immediate shifts we could expect? And maybe, how might our digital world look years down the line?
Right, the crystal ball question. In the near term, say the first 0 to 3 years, the source predicts the U.S. would likely see significant market disruption. No doubt about it.
Things have changed fast.
Big time.
Hmm.
Major platforms would have to fundamentally re-engineer their products. Algorithmic feeds, as we currently know them, would be radically altered. Some smaller platforms, frankly, might struggle to adapt.
Hmm.
We should also brace ourselves for intense legal battles, especially around First Amendment speech rights and Eighth Amendment excessive fines issues.
We'll get into those later.
Definitely. And there'd be a period of public adaptation. Users, like you, might initially experience what the source calls a discovery deficit. Finding new things might feel harder without the algorithm spoon-feeding you. Or maybe even choice fatigue, having to make more active decisions.
Interesting. What about advertising?
Advertising spend would absolutely shift. But the disruption could also open up new market opportunities for companies focused on compliant innovation. Globally, DUNMEA would definitely trigger international scrutiny, debate, potentially retaliatory measures from other countries. And it could accelerate this idea of a splinter net, where the internet fragments regionally with some foreign platforms, perhaps choosing to just withdraw from the U.S. market entirely rather than comply.
Wow. Okay, so that's the near term. What about looking further out, say, 3+ years?
Over the long term, the vision painted is one of a potentially fundamentally healthier digital ecosystem.
Healthier how?
Well, potentially reduced digital fatigue for users like you, less polarizing content getting algorithmically amplified, and genuinely sustained user autonomy. Innovation would be compelled to pivot towards creating genuine value, not just capturing attention, which could foster new, ethical market leaders.
A different kind of tech company.
Possibly. Public discourse could significantly improve if the algorithmic amplification of sensationalism and outrage is curtailed. And there might even be invigorated real-world engagement as people spend less time just passively scrolling. Globally, DUNMEA could either lead to other countries adopting similar rules, regulatory harmonization, or continued divergence. But it would undeniably force multinational tech companies to adapt their strategies towards more ethical practices worldwide, even outside the U.S. So for you, the ultimate vision here is a digital space that genuinely serves your well-being and flourishing, rather than just being an engine for attention extraction.
That's a powerful vision, definitely a big shift. But you mentioned ripple effects. Beyond the obvious targets like social media giants, how far could DUNMEA's impact actually spread? Our source, the ripple effect, suggests it could go pretty broad. Could it affect, say, my banking app, or even the app I use for online grocery shopping?
Yes, absolutely. The ripple effect is potentially quite expensive. The act's impact isn't limited to social media. It extends to basically any industry using digital interfaces that employ these artificial means to drive user engagement.
Okay.
Now, it doesn't regulate a company's non-digital operations like how a bank manages loans or how a grocery store stocks shelves, but it absolutely impacts their digital touchpoints.
Give me an example.
Okay, take gaming. Any social features or game discovery sections that algorithmically prioritize content just to maximize the time you spend playing like those recommended games for your sections, they could be affected.
Oh, okay.
Or in food industries, those ordering apps that recommend certain menu items in ways designed to maximize how often you use the app or how much you buy, rather than just helping you place your order. Those would come under scrutiny.
Right, the upsell algorithm.
Yeah, exactly. Similarly, online retailers with those recommended for you sections that proactively push products at you, going beyond your explicit search or stated intent, they could be impacted. Even things you might not expect, like healthcare and education apps or financial service apps.
Really? How?
If they have, say, wellness content feeds or financial news sections that algorithmically push content primarily to maximize how much you use the app, rather than directly answering your questions or fulfilling your explicit request, they would need to adapt. It really highlights that for you, almost any digital interaction could potentially become more intentional, less subject to subtle manipulation.
A shift this big, this foundational, it must come with some potential downsides, right? Unforeseen consequences. What does the source say about those risks?
It definitely could, and the source does point to several potential unforeseen consequences. We mentioned the discovery deficit. Finding new, interesting content might require more active effort from you.
Making you do more work.
Potentially, yes. This could also lead to the rise of new external curators, maybe influencers, maybe new types of media outlets acting as new gatekeepers, filling the void left by the algorithms.
Trading one gatekeeper for another.
It's a possibility. There's also the risk we touched on of an accelerated splinter net if more foreign platforms just decide to leave the U.S. market. Innovation might shift, maybe narrowing its focus if companies become overly cautious about compliance. Users like you might also face an increased burden for information verification because the algorithmic filtering, for better or worse, would be diminished.
Right. You'd have to vet things more yourself.
And there's always the possibility of an underground economy of manipulation emerging on less regulated platforms or outside the U.S. jurisdiction. However, the proponents of DUNMEA, as presented in the source, argue that these are largely acceptable trade-offs if they ultimately lead to a genuinely healthier digital environment overall, one that fosters critical thinking and more intentional engagement from you.
Okay, so it challenges business models. It has broad reach, potential downsides. It's pretty clear this law would face an unprecedented legal battle, as our source, The Legal Battleground, puts it.
Yeah.
What are the main lines of attack we'd expect from big tech companies, and how would the government likely defend DUNMEA?
Yeah. The legal fight would be immense. The primary challenge almost certainly would come under the First Amendment. Tech companies would argue that their algorithm selection and prioritization of content constitutes speech, or at least editorial discretion, which is protected.
The algorithm is editor argument.
Exactly. They'd also challenge the sheer size of those fines under the Eighth Amendment's excessive fines clause, arguing that penalties reaching 100% of gross revenue are disproportionate, even confiscatory.
Seems like a plausible argument, potentially.
It's definitely one they'd make. Arguments about the vagueness of key terms like artificial means to drive user engagement would likely come up. Is it clear enough what's actually prohibited? And the extraterritoriality aspect, applying it to foreign platforms, would also be challenged. So for you, this means we'd be looking at a major, potentially years-long legal fight that would really shape the future of digital regulation.
And what's the government's counter-argument, according to the source? How would they defend the law?
The government's core argument would likely be that DUNMEA regulates commercial conduct and deceptive business practices, not protected speech. They'd liken it to existing regulations on deceptive advertising, for example.
Conduct versus speech.
Right. And there's a critical leverage point here, sometimes called the black box dilemma. If platforms claim their algorithms are speech, the government could then demand that they disclose how that speech is generated, essentially forcing them to open up their proprietary algorithms.
Putting them in a bind.
Exactly. They'd also emphasize the massive scale of harm that these practices cause, citing things like mental health crises, societal polarization to justify the severe penalties. They'd frame DUNMEA as a crucial public health imperative, maybe drawing parallels to historical industry accountability fights, like with tobacco.
Interesting parallel. What about AI, like AI creator bots?
The source mentions this. The law is apparently clarified to focus on the platform's manipulative algorithmic push of content, regardless of who or what created it. It doesn't get bogged down in the nature of the creator, human or AI, once you explicitly choose to engage with that content. This neatly sidesteps thorny debates about AI sentience or AI rights.
And the Supreme Court, how might they view this?
Well, the source notes that the current Supreme Court has shown skepticism towards broad regulatory power and tends to offer strong protection for corporate speech. So it's expected they would view DUNMEA with intense scrutiny. The source actually suggests there's a high probability of significant judicial modification, especially concerning those 100% fines. So for you, the takeaway is expect a very public, very protracted, and high-stakes legal showdown.
Okay, beyond the inevitable legal fights, how do you even get a bill this transformative passed in today's political climate? It sounds incredibly difficult. Our sources, from concept to law, and the Overton window strategy, suggest it requires a really comprehensive, multi-phase public discourse strategy.
It certainly does. It wouldn't just happen. The strategy outlined involves a kind of three-phase viral push. Phase one is making the issue viral. This means focusing on things like the hidden cost of the scroll, using powerful personal stories, framing it really simply as your time, their profit.
Making it relatable.
Exactly. Phase two is making the solution viral. This involves painting a picture of your feed, your choice, promoting this idea of authentic connection over algorithmic obsession, making the alternative appealing.
Got it.
And phase three is making the law viral. This means distilling DUNMEA down to its core, those big four principles. user autonomy, transparency, accountability, and focus on functionality. And crucially, providing very clear calls to action for you, the public, to contact representatives, sign petitions, make noise. The whole strategy aims to create what the source calls an undeniable public mandate that politicians simply can't ignore.
And this strategy even gets into leveraging a pretty aggressive political tactic, the Overton window strategy, right? By intentionally pushing an even more extreme policy proposal.
Yes, this part is quite fascinating strategically. The Overton window, as you know, is that range of policies considered politically acceptable at any given moment.
What's considered mainstream.
Right. So, to make DUNMEA's very strong tiered fines up to 100% seem more reasonable or moderate in public debate, the strategy proposes creating a one-and-done shadow organization.
One and done. Okay.
This group would loudly, vociferously advocate for an even more severe policy, a complete ban from operating in the U.S. after a single violation. No second chances.
Wow, that is extreme.
It is, with slogans like comply or die, American law for American users. This extreme demand is specifically designed to shift the Overton window, making DUNMEA's fines, which are still incredibly tough, look like a more moderate compromise by comparison. It aims to increase pressure on the corporations to accept significant accountability and also bolster the resolve of legislators pushing for DUNMEA.
What are the risks of that, though?
Well, the risks include potentially being perceived as extremist, which could backfire, or maybe inadvertently creating too much public demand for the more extreme one-and-done policy, making DUNMEA harder to pass. It's a high-stakes political maneuver. So for you, watching this unfold would mean witnessing a very carefully orchestrated campaign designed to shift the entire public conversation around digital regulation.
Okay, and how does this strategy think about content creators? Everyone from hobbyists to full-time professionals. It sounds like there could be some initial disruption for them, too.
Yes, the strategy absolutely acknowledges that. There would likely be an initial disruption, particularly for creators who are heavily reliant on the existing algorithmic push to get their content seen. They'd probably see a dip in their reach, at least initially.
That could be tough for them.
It could. However, the long-term benefits are framed as achieving an authenticity dividend. The idea is that creators would be freed from the constant, often exhausting pressure of feeding the algorithm.
Right, chasing viral trends.
Exactly. They could focus instead on building genuine connections with their audience, creating quality content, and developing more stable, direct revenue streams like subscriptions or memberships. The promise is reduced burnout, a potentially fairer compensation model, and ultimately a shift towards an ecosystem where authenticity and quality are truly rewarded, which in theory benefits both the creators and you, the audience member, who's seeking out their work.
That makes sense. Okay, finally, our last source, Uniting for Digital Autonomy, tackles a really crucial question. In today's polarized political world, how on earth do you unite such a divided spectrum behind a single major bill like DUNMEA?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The strategy outlined in this source is essentially to frame DUNMEA in a way that appeals specifically to the core values of every major political leaning.
Tailoring the message.
Precisely. So for progressives on the far left, the messaging is about dismantling digital oligarchies and emphasizing corporate accountability.
Right.
For the center left and liberals, it's framed as safeguarding democracy and protecting consumer rights. For centrists and moderates, it's positioned as common sense regulation, particularly for protecting children and families. For the center-right and conservatives, the connection is made to true freedom online, strengthening parental rights, and promoting free markets by curbing monopolistic behavior.
And the further right.
And for the far-right, libertarian-leaning conservatives and populist nationalists, it's framed in terms of taking back our internet from big tech tyranny, emphasizing individual sovereignty, and even linking it to national security concerns about foreign influence.
So everyone gets a reason to support it based on their own values.
That's the goal. The unifying call, the common thread across all these messages, is the desire for a digital environment that is less manipulative, more transparent, more accountable, and ultimately more user-centric. This shared desire for just a healthier, more honest digital experience is seen as the powerful common ground that could potentially unite diverse groups for your benefit and for society as a whole.
So after digging through all these sources, this deep dive,
Yeah.
what does it all really mean for you, the listener, going forward? This act, DUNMEA, it really paints a picture of a world potentially on the cusp of a profound digital transformation. It's clearly a bold attempt to reset the fundamental relationship between us and our technology,
A fundamental reset.
moving away from this model of passive consumption and, let's face it, manipulative algorithms, towards one where your explicit choices, your intentions, are paramount. It feels like more than just a new law. It's almost like a potential declaration of independence for the digital age, really aiming to put you back in the driver's seat of your online experience.
And if we connect all this back to the bigger picture, DUNMEA really does represent a pivotal moment. It's a genuine choice point about the future of our digital lives. Now, its path to actually becoming law and the subsequent adaptations by industry and users, that will undoubtedly be complex, challenging, full of fights, as we discussed.
Yeah, no guarantees.
No guarantees at all. But the core intent behind it seems clear. To try and foster a digital ecosystem that genuinely serves human flourishing, not just engagement metrics. And this raises, I think, a really important final question for you to mull over. If this act, or something like it, actually succeeds in its ambitious goals, what new forms of digital interaction, what new kinds of societal engagement, maybe things we can't even fully imagine right now, might emerge when technology is finally truly designed to empower your autonomy?